the fire alarm, we do have to leave the building. Please assemble by Tower House in the car park, not at Cafe Des Amis. So Tower House is your assembly point. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recording of the meeting. Why they would like to, I would have no idea, using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. This meeting is being minuted, streamed and recorded, and I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being filmed and made available to view live and in archive form on the Council's website. Cameras will follow you when you press your button to speak. It is possible that the cameras may capture your image if you're in the public gallery, so if you wish to avoid being filmed, it's recommended you make a member of staff aware and they will direct you where to sit. That's for members of the public. Unfortunately, for members of the Joint Transportation Board, you have to be filmed. So, the Westgate Garden gates on the Riverside are locked at sunset, so members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit. I think we'll get out of here well before sunset. Excellent. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Sorry, none are received in advance, Chair.
Thank you very much. So, oh, Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Apologies from Councillor Nolan.
Thank you very much. No, Councillor Nolan, apologies. And do we have substitutes at all? No? Excellent. I'm sure we'll struggle on. Are there any declarations of interest by members or officers? Wonderful. If a declaration of interest does occur to you at some point during an item, then you can sing out during the rest of the meeting and we can note that. It doesn't have to be noted if it does come up later on. So the first item of proper business, the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of March 2025. Can we agree by general assent that these meetings are a true representation? Agreed? Yeah, lovely. Wonderful. Public participation. There are no public speakers for the meeting this evening, so we can move right on to the first bit, which is the new chair and vice chair. The chair and vice chair of the Joint Transportation Board are agreed by the respective City Council and County Council. I was confirmed in place at the City Council's annual general meeting in May 2025. We have not yet received a nomination for vice chair from Kent County Council, but I'm assured that will be forthcoming before the next meeting, hopefully. So this body doesn't elect its own chair and vice chair, they're appointed by the respective bodies. So I will struggle on as a solo chair for this evening. I don't get any extra money for that, I think, do I? No? Okay. Overview of the Joint Transportation Board. So I'd like to actually, before we do that, I'll introduce two officers for those who haven't before. We have Ruth Gowdy from Canterbury City Council and Kevin Gore from Kent County Council. They will be doing the vast majority of the work this evening. And the first part of that is Ruth is going to give a short overview of the Joint Transportation Board. So, Ruth, over to you.
So I'm Ruth Gowdy. I'm the Transportation Team Leader at Canterbury City Council. I've got a very small team of a couple of people who help me. Richard Jenkins does mainly parking, and Emma Potgieter is my project officer. Is that better? Okay, sorry. Ruth Gowdy, did you get that bit? Okay. I was asked to write a sort of introduction to the Joint Transportation Board because there's new members, some of whom have not been councillors at all, and some of whom have been councillors before, but they haven't sat on the Joint Transportation Board. And it's quite unique in that it is a coming together of the City Council and the County Council. We make recommendations, you make recommendations, but we don't make decisions. And the recommendations go either to the County Council or the City Council, depending on who's the overseeing body. So I picked out a few things that we do in the Joint Transportation Board. There we are. Right. Highway Works Programme is that's a Kent County Council report, and it is a standing item. And you'll see when you look through the report that it covers everything that highways covers. So these are generic photographs of stuff that is the type of stuff that is in those reports. So there's carriageway surfacing, drainage, street lighting, crash remedial schemes, which are that's the slow marking and the warning triangle, and that's where county council officers go out and have a look at what schemes they could put in to improve a crash record on a particular road. And the bottom image on the right hand side is actually artist impression of Story bypass when it which is a major scheme, and they also get reported upon, and so do developer funded schemes. It's a developer funded major project, so it's there in that list. And there's a few other things in the Highway Works programme which Kevin will go through as well. And then the next one is the annual parking review is also a standing item, but it's annual. Every year we gather up the requests from members of the public and parish councils and councillors for things that amendments that people want to make to parking, the parking arrangements where they live, or something that they've seen that they think is dangerous. Again, these are mainly generic images apart from the top left, which is in London Road, and that shows a resident parking scheme with the parking bays marked out. If we get requests for yellow lines because of parking on corners, which is the bottom left image, generally we will support that and bring that forward, go out to advert on that, consultation through advertisement on that proposal, and then we bring any objections that there might be to the Joint Transportation Board for you to make a recommendation on what you think we should go forward with. The picture of the line painting machine is simply, that's what it is. And then parking on the footway, we get a lot of requests to remove parking on the footway. It obstructs the footway, as you can see in the two images. It damages it, as you can see in the slightly bigger image. And this is a generic one. It's not one that I've taken from here. And it also damages the services that are underneath the footway. So there's very, very good reasons for banning parking on the footway. And if you don't ban it by traffic order, then it's not technically illegal. So we will always support requests for footway parking bans. They don't always go through because sometimes the street is such that if you take away people's ability to park on the footway, there isn't anywhere else for them to go. And then you have to make difficult decisions as councillors about which way forward you'd like to go with that. We brought the transport strategy, the draft transport strategy, to the JTB about a year ago as part of the consultation into into the recommendations of the draft transport strategy, and it covers improvements to pedestrian facilities. The top left image is a bit tongue-in-cheek. That's Shibuya in Tokyo, and it's the busiest pedestrian crossing in the world. We're not proposing that here, but we are proposing more improvements to pedestrian facilities. The image below, again, all of these are generic apart from the two on the right. The image below is a cycle path to help people cycle and make a choice about whether or not they can go by cycle, and particularly school children. The image top right is the bus lane on Rodus Town. In that particular location, we've got bus lanes going in both directions. That makes a massive difference to the reliability and punctuality of the bus, and makes it a choice that people can choose instead of driving. Bottom right is West Station, and in the transport strategy, we're proposing significant improvements to West Station to maximise the passenger throughput, and to, at the moment, the trains can't all, a 12-car train can't all pull up against the platform, so to lengthen the platform to make better provision for that as well. The image in the middle is just a car, and that because there's also facilities for car drivers. It's a balanced transport strategy, so it's got cars in there as well. And the image at the bottom is a cargo bike, because if we can persuade deliverers to make a choice for the last mile of delivery, that'll take a lot of traffic off the road as well, and we could use park and ride sites as goods transfer stations. So that's what that image is meant to convey. There was a request for a report last October, into the number of road closures and how they're affecting the traffic coming into the city, and how Kent coordinate them. And I wasn't actually here at that report for that meeting, but there was a report brought, and so again, two of these are generic images of road closures. One a complete closure, and the other one temporary traffic signals for single way working. And anyone who's been on Littlebourne Road recently will be awfully familiar with that. The Kent permit scheme, I think, was the first in the country, and I think it's the model that, and it's getting on for 20 years old, and I think it's the model that other counties look up to. It had Department for Transport legislation to bring it in. Every single operator who wants to close the road or dig a hole in it has to have a permit, and if it's on a traffic sensitive road, they have to have they might have to pay lane rental for the use of the road, and that's what those images convey as well. If you're interested, that was October the 22nd, I think, report, and you could look back through the old JTB papers to see that. And the last one has not happened yet. Camera enforcement of Herne Bay pedestrian zone. At the moment, we've got gates in the pedestrian zone. We want to use some money that we've taken off developers to remove these gates and have camera enforcement instead, because that will be more effective, more efficient. We won't have to pay Canenco to open and close the gates every day, and the gates are openable by traders who just drive in anyway. So we want camera enforcement instead, and that it's quite an innovative way of enforcement. And we need to work. We're working very closely with Kent County Council on the installation and the operation and the subsequent enforcement of those gates. So that's a flavour. It's not everything that is covered in a JTB, but it's a flavour of the variety of things that are brought to the JTB for you to either note or make recommendation on. Okay.
Thank you, Ruth. I have one question. It's a great opportunity if you have any questions of Ruth as well. Thank you. I'll take you in a minute. But Mr. Chamberlain first.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry if this is too much detail for this, but obviously this is exactly in my area, and we've got a meeting on it next week. There's a consultation, though, I believe, which is taking place. We're talking like it's something we want to do, and proposed as such. But there's a consultation. I wondered how you see that working and playing out.
The consultation is being fronted by Kent County Council, and I was sent it to sort of approve, but I'm not dealing with it, I'm afraid. I can give you the contact name afterwards if you want.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, this is in my ward. I'm up for the cameras. I think the public of the opinion that the cameras are there to gain revenue, which it technically is when people break the law. I've got a slight concern that if there isn't a barrier there, people will unwittingly drive up there. I kind of get where it's something we need to do. Because the gates are a pain. It'd be ideal if we had a pop-up barrier like we do in Canterbury. I know that's I don't know if that's something we can revisit, but I do have a concern that people, I know they'll get a fine later on, but actually at the moment, because there's a solid barrier that stops the people driving up there. When that's gone, they're going to drive up there. They'll get a fine later on. But I'm thinking of the safety issue in Mortimer Street when pedestrians are walking around realising there's almost going to be like 2 weeks maybe where there's a free-for-all before people start getting fined. If that makes sense. I don't know whether we can have bigger signage put up to make it more obvious that you'll get a ticket if you make it simple. If you drive up this road on this times, you're going to get a ticket. There's a camera watching you, this, that and the other. Make it really obvious, because I do fear that there might be an accident driving up that road if there's not a solid barrier there. And I understand all the things about having a pop-up barrier and replacing the barriers with a camera, which I'm supportive of. Okay, it's just a concern, and the public don't realise you'll either have the barrier, which is it's either the gate or the camera. It's not, we're taking away the parking up the restriction to not drive up Mortimer Street. Does that make sense?
With that, Councillor Thomas, this isn't sort of an agenda item for this evening. Once the consultation's over, then we can bring it back, and that sort of links into a point I wanted to make, which is I would be very happy to hear from members of things that you would like to table for future JTBs. I think in the past it's been, this is the agenda, we run through the standing orders, but if you would like to have a chat and get that on the agenda for the next JTB, I'd be happy to put that on as an agenda item. Not sure what the dates for the consultation are, but once the consultation is closed, then I think it would be an excellent idea to have that discussion in this forum, and maybe we could get a more detailed presentation on that as well. So, yeah, so it should be done by the next JTB, unless it's the longest consultation in history. So if it drops a note, and we'll pop that. Yeah, no, I get it. Okay. Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you, Chair. So many of these items are about the centre of Canterbury or Herne, but much of the district actually is rural. We haven't seen a single picture of a rural area yet. Even Littlebourne Road is, Littlebourne only because it's the road that goes from the city to Littlebourne. The money's come from the Levelling Up Fund or from Active Transport Travel England. Levelling up with whom? The rural areas are desperate for active, bus links, for example. The aspirations that we had last year in the report that Ruth has just mentioned aspired for a bus to some villages for about once an hour up until 10:30 at night. It's not acceptable. And please, members, if you would, liaise with your rural parishes, ask them what they would like. We're spending money here, we're looking at money here on a camera to police a pedestrian zone. We're looking for speed cameras in the villages. We don't have those anywhere. And we're told there's no money for those, or there's not the facility for those. And yet we are, cameraing pedestrian zones in built-up areas. It's not fair, it's not equal, it's not level, and really we are operating two districts. But you're happy to laud the rural areas of the district, and yet when it actually comes to projects within those rural areas, projects that we need to be able to link back into where the services are being withdrawn into. Services are being withdrawn into the city, into Herne and Whitstable. To get there is proving increasingly more difficult for the people who live in those villages. And this is, I think, a series of examples that would serve the built-up areas. It would be nice if we could see things that would serve the rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. I do take your point completely, and I want you to assure you that as well as transportation on the City Council, my role is rural champion, and I take that very seriously. You will, I think, hear from two of the updates later on. There's a fair few things in the Highway Works programme and the Active Travel update that do cover the rural areas. And I would also suggest, as ever, that you liaise with your city and county council colleagues, particularly from a county council point of view, to look at the highways improvement plan, which members can do, as well as the parish councils. But you're absolutely right. I think when we tend to talk about transport, people do tend to talk about the cluttered areas and not realising how they get there in the first place. But it is definitely part of it, and do keep reminding us of it. Thank you.
Chair.
Mr. Brady.
Thanks, Chair. You preempted me on the Herne Bay and the camera versus barrier item. That's hopefully going to be come back so we can debate it in full. And perhaps we need a standing item on highways improvement plans. They are incredibly important for highway improvements and delivery across the district. And through parishes, I think maybe we can have that standing item, and then parish representatives come forward, and then we can hear what that looks like between district, county and parish to look at these improvements as a whole.
I think that's an excellent idea. And having read through quite a lot of highways improvement plans recently, there's some stuff in there that I think would be really useful to be discussed in a wider forum. Councillor Prentice.
Thanks, Chair. And I don't know if it's one for AOB, but in terms of future items, it would be good to have a substantial item on bus services in the district. I think we did talk about it during the previous chair's tenure. And I don't know if, Stagecoach could be compelled, but it's certainly nice to ask them. And it's an opportunity for them to tell us what they're doing and how we can hold them to account. So that would be a strong suggestion from me. Thank you.
Happy to do that, and they have indicated they're willing to come in and have a chat, and I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. But if you drop me a note to formally request that, I will ask them before I try to compel them.
Consider it formally requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Ruth. Next on the agenda is the active travel update. But do you want to give Jamie some time to turn up, or do you want to go straight into the highway works?
Thanks. I don't think Jamie's probably going to be coming, so I can try and kind of run through.
If you would like, if you can cover the active travel update, that'd be very handy. Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, the active travel update. It's normally presented by Jamie Watson, who's the senior active travel program manager. It was created basically so that Kent County Council, they're working with the Department of Transport and Active Travel England, who were created basically as an executive body to oversee walking, cycling, wheeling and stuff around the thing, just to kind of get more people out and about and active during the COVID pandemic. Obviously, it's taken off since then. And a lot of the kind of HIPs that are kind of done through the parishes and kind of other district councils are looking at different schemes and different ways of getting money. So we basically have to go to Active Travel England with some bids of some schemes that we want. We have to say how viable they are. We have to kind of do consultations behind them all. It's actually quite difficult to kind of get the schemes to go ahead, especially when it's quite close to everyone. And I think everyone's got these great ideas, and they are fantastic ideas, but it's just trying to kind of, the buildability behind them, which sometimes can cause the issues. So just running through the report, obviously there was the Active Travel Tranche 2, which was Canterbury Burgate to Littlebourne Road. So that is still going through the Stage 3 safety audit. So that should be completed soon. Tranche 3, which was 22-23, Herne Bay Station Central Parade, walking, wheeling and cycling improvements. That is complete, yes. Yes, so that's almost pretty much completed. Tranche 4 funding. So the following schemes were successful in gaining funding for development or design only, and that was Whitstable, Crab and Winkle cycle extension, but £100,000. So they are quite expensive schemes. The Riverside cycle route, Parham Road to Vauxhall Road, which was £90,000, and Braggs Lane to New Road cycle route, Herne Bay, which was £150,000. Obviously, the report will go in, if you I won't read word for word because we'll be here all night. But obviously, the information's in the kind of report to run through them. And the last one, we are now starting a new tranche where we're looking for tranche 5, where we've recently received 1.8 million. So the team are working hard on them at the moment, but all of them are in the report. So if you do have any questions or anything in the report, please let me know and I will take it back. Can we rewind 5 seconds? Yeah. No, that's actually fine.
I think Mr. Brady was just first.
No, just to thank you to the team. And in Canterbury, we punch above our weight. We've had a lot of money coming through from Active Travel, and putting all of this together. If you look at other districts throughout Kent, we've done a really good job, and we get quite a lot of funding across. And I think it was really good to hear that we had about £5 million come from Active Travel. There's a walking and cycling group at KCC. It hasn't met since the election. Hopefully that will meet again, because that adds increased transparency, member buy-in, and it's a good steer from councillors to this group, and then that these projects flow from there. So just a big thank you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Councillor Bland.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. And I'm interested to see that there's ideas about forthcoming funding or future funding. I'd like to put one straight up. And it's an unusual one because it is actually in the rural areas. And it's regarding Chartham Hatch and Bigby Road. As you know, Bigby Road is used as a terrible cut through for an awful lot of traffic, which is pretty dangerous for the residents in Chartham Hatch and so on. And there's certainly some interest that's come from discussions with parish councillors and so on, and some residents, for maybe looking at an active travel solution to Bigby Road. Please keep in touch with me about how we can go about this, and maybe you can give us some advice, and we'll get a meeting together at Chartham Hatch to see whether there's a kind of bid that we can actually formulate for that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think as well to get the parish on board as well, because I did sit in the parish HIP meeting about 2 weeks ago, and that wasn't one of the items on the agenda. So there was a lot of maintenance issues on there that we were able to remove because they're just kind of day-to-day what we do. So please engage with the parish as well to make sure it's on there.
I'm happy to chat with you on that as well, because there was the biggest issue on that road recently. There was a goat loose on it, which caused a massive tailback. So, but yeah, I think you're right. That is terrifying, that road. Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Well, yes, I congratulate you on achieving an award of £4.5 million towards capital spending. I'm just wondering how far that will actually go towards achieving real active travel in the district. Road schemes are extraordinarily expensive, I imagine it's many, many times higher than that to achieve the government's target, which is to get 50% of urban journeys by active travel. Obviously, we're nowhere near that at the present. I'm just wondering whether you have anything in mind for a figure of how much money you'd really need to achieve the government's target. Thank you.
I think the problem isn't the money. I think the problem is the will of the people. So we can build the routes, but it needs to be. We need to encourage people to use them. They need to be very good. We need to be able to encourage people to use them, and we need to explain why they are better than going by car. And I'm not sure that we're in that space at the moment. There are some wards, I think Barton is one, where walking and cycling is 40%. And there are some wards, the rural wards, obviously, and maybe further out in Herne Bay, where walking and cycling is 10% or 20%, just because the facilities aren't there, and they can't be there because there really isn't enough road space to provide safe cycle routes for every single journey that needs to be made on that. We can't remove traffic from every road to make it safe enough for people to think that that is where they want their children to cycle. So there's always going to be a compromise, but there's still an awful lot of people whose choice is to go by car, and they're not going to want to switch. So it's not just about money, it's about mindset change as well.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Bothwell.
Yes, I think, okay, there needs to be a will, but I think it's also about money, because I think, if we really are going to achieve a society where people travel actively rather than by motor vehicle, we do need to spend a lot of money. And we need to introduce new connections and new routes. And where there are roads which are unsafe for cyclists, we need to negotiate with adjoining landowners to buy strips of land, or for them to gift this land to the, if we're actually going to achieve this, we need to do a hell of a lot more, and it will cost a lot of money, because I think there'll need to be compulsory purchase of strips of land adjacent to roads that you can put in cycle paths and footpaths. And it just needs a huge amount of money, I would say.
Yes, I agree with you. A huge amount of money, and I think probably slightly above the pay grade of this board at the moment. But thank you. Mr. Heaver.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just like to support what Councillor Bothwell just said, and also perhaps just mostly for my education as a novice councillor, that, Kevin, as you alluded to, there's a lot of good ideas come out from the public, from ward councillors, from KCC councillors about what would be a marvellous active travel scheme. We have a brilliant active travel group in Whitstable. David Hayward there does a really brilliant job, and lots of good ideas. I'm just going to get a general feel how you prioritise those ideas and how we feed those ideas from our particular wards to you most effectively, rather than just being a big sack of great ideas and you having a lucky dip. I'm sure that's not how it works, but if it's not that, what is it?
I mean, I'll take that point away. I don't actually work for the active travel, road safety and active travel team, but I can take them points away, and I can kind of ask Jamie to kind of come back with an update. Like I said, he would normally be here tonight, so I'll trust that.
I can give you a little bit on that, in that some of the things that you'll see on the active travel plan there, for instance, the Whitstable extension from Crab and Winkle is up 20 years that's been in the making. So probably more than that. That's extending the cycle track through the old disused railway line through the Crab and Winkle. And that's just funding to scope it out, to see if it will work to a certain extent in some of these cases. Basically, they're fed in, they're judged on their merits, they're put forward for a funding case for design, and it goes through an extremely long process. And that process, as I say, can be decades in the making for some of these projects. But where they usually come from is from local residents and groups like the CT5 Active Travel Forum and various other ones around the area. And that's what I would suggest we always say to your residents, that if you've got an area where you would like that scheme, as Councillor Bland just mentioned, Bigbury Road, get that support of the local residents, the parish council, and start building that from the ground up, and then pass it over to the officers who can take it through that process. Sometimes it's quicker, but sometimes it isn't. Councillor Sole I had next. Oh, sorry, Mr. Brady.
Can I just come in on that? So the walking and cycling group that I mentioned within KCC, a lot of these projects come to that group to have a discussion and a debate with members to then look at the priorities. So it comes to that group, and then that's how it gets filtered to the different districts to then work up point systems, and then they all come back and then we're given briefings. So it's a backwards and forwards. So get on that group. It's called Member Walking and Cycling Group. Hopefully it will start again in the next couple of months.
A group, not a committee.
Group. And then get on that group, and then you'll see the inside process.
Mr. Sole, you've been waiting patiently.
It's been such a long time since I pressed the speak button, I nearly hit the wrong one. The 20 mile an hour zone in Littlebourne, you may not be able to answer this, Kevin, sorry, because it's... I note from the report there that, this was consulted on nearly a year ago. And for quite a few months now, the parish council have been asking me what's going on, when are we going to get it? And I think there's been certainly a vacuum of information coming out from Kent County Council to the parish council on the scheme and what's going to happen. The Kent County Council isn't very good at keeping parish councils up to date with this. And this update report here still doesn't tell me anything about when it's going to happen. And I would have liked to have seen that in the report, some dates when we can expect it. So perhaps can you take that back, Kevin, that the council can email the clerk of Littlebourne Parish Council and let them know, and me know as well, when we can expect to see the scheme put in place.
Yeah, of course. I'll take that away and come back.
Thank you. Any further questions on active? Oh, sorry, Councillor Buckman, you did wave at me.
Yeah, so I'm the councillor in Wincheap and Thannington, or for Wincheap and Thannington. There's a large sort of alleyways that people would use for cycling from the school into their residential places in Wincheap, but it crosses a number of roads, sort of like Heaton Road and places like that. And it's where the cars park really close to the entrance of these alleyways. And they're quite wide, they're not like a small alleyway, that the children on the bikes can't actually see round the cars for the cars coming up the hill and down the hill. So I don't know if there's any, you can put some sort of restriction around that way, because that is, I have had a number of emails, and that is why people aren't cycling along them, because it is dangerous. And another cycle path, which was the underpass near Dunelm, that used to go from Thannington, I've got it in front of me, I don't even have glasses, wait a sec. From what used to be open from Wincheap to Thannington, it must be near Dunelm Mill, and that's been shut off for quite a while, apparently. And there's also, with the new development around Saxon Fields, some of the footpaths, I think I have emailed PROW on that, have been shut off by the developer at the moment. And again, you know, the cycling, it puts people off, well, you can't cycle or walk. But yeah, thank you.
If you
Is it best to email you?
If you come back to me with certainly the alleyway that needs the parking restrictions, I'll have a look at all of that. And I will find out what's happened to the underpass, because that's a critical part of that development, that's how you get round that horrible Fannington interchange, that otherwise that's a nightmare for pedestrians and cyclists. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any more on active travel, or shall we move on to highways? Lovely. You're up again, Kevin. Highways Works programme.
Thank you, Chair. The Highways Work Programme is an information-only report, so I hope that everyone's kind of had a chance to have a look through it. In the past, years and years ago, we used to read through every single item, but we'd be here for about 2 or 3 hours, so we decided kind of not to go through that route. What the Highways Works programme shows is kind of the largest schemes that Kent County Council are doing. So it's not kind of the day-to-day maintenance that you may have parishes come to you about, vegetation needs cutting or the dreaded potholes or anything. None of that will be recorded in this, because this is more about the large highways programme, the kind of 1 to 5 year plan that we have, and also the larger schemes that people are doing. Obviously, if there are any kind of queries around kind of day-to-day maintenance, kind of potholes or anything that's coming to you, they can come directly to me and I can pass to my team and we can kind of have a look at them. But we wouldn't want to put them onto this report because it kind of takes away from what this report is there to do. But yeah, if people have had the kind of chance to have a read through, if anyone's got any questions with kind of any of the items, please let me know. If I can answer them, I will. Obviously, this report is put together by every single different asset group within Kent County Council. Obviously, we can't put everybody at the JTB, so we can try and answer as many questions as possible.
In the least surprising result of the year so far, Mr. Soul.
Thank you, Chair. A plea, but really, for a bit more joined up thinking on some of these projects and how they mesh in with highway improvement plans. And you'll know the one I'm talking about, the one in Beaksbourne, where having worked for quite a long time, the parish council, to reduce speeds by painting 30-mile-an-hour roundels on the road, the team then came along and resurfaced the road in a matter of weeks afterwards, covering the roundels up, and we're still waiting for them to be repainted. And it does seem that nobody actually was talking to anyone and to find out what could have happened then, and why after the resurfacing weren't the roundels painted back on immediately. Why is it taking months for it to happen?
Yes, thank you. I do know about that one. I personally have issued the order to put the roundels back in. It was one of the ones where a site survey was done prior to surface dressing. So it was done a couple of months prior. When they go through, they look at the kind of surface, choose their routes for what they were doing. In the meantime, them roundels had gone in. So the team actually was not aware of them when they went back. The crew probably should have highlighted it when they were on site, but we'll take that on. But the order is in the system, so they will be. There was a 30 and a 40 going back in.
Mr. Brady.
When's the pothole blitz going to start?
The pothole blitz has started. We have got various roads on there at the moment, and it's coming in phases. We've kind of got the phase 1, which is ongoing at the moment, and then we've got another phase which should be coming in September time as well.
So I'll just reach out to you again about the road that you know what I'm talking about, the 40 acres and the slalom and crater. Okay.
Yeah, so that is scheduled for the second round. Obviously, we've had quite a few on this one where we've had, I mean, one of them that we wasn't kind of expecting was kind of Central Parade in Herne Bay, because it actually got quite a lot worse, and we was unable to, you know, with the time of year and stuff like that, we kind of had to prioritise to get that in to kind of save it.
Last one, I promise. What's the burn rate like on the money that has come from central government? There's an extra 14 million. Is it going to last? Are we going through it quite quickly, or is there going to be a contingency for straight after winter? Because winter arrives, bad weather, cracked roads, straight after winter, then we get more potholes again. So is there going to be anything saved to get in front of that?
There should be. I mean, we all know there's a massive backlog with any type of highway maintenance across the whole country. Kent especially having a major backlog. I suppose ultimately that's why they've kind of done it in the phases, the kind of different phases. So there is a bit like coming later on in the year, so we can actually get in and do the kind of main priorities in the kind of summer months, and then we can kind of have a look for the kind of rest of the year. But it is always difficult. We never know what winter's going to bring. Some winters does bring lots of potholes, other winters brings not so many. So it is kind of always hard to judge, but we kind of always have a little backup of kind of works that we can kind of do, even if it is just kind of the safety critical works rather than the large scale patching works.
Councillor Bland, then Mr. Atkinson after that.
Yeah, thank you. It's really nice to see in the report that resurfacing's happened at Hards Court Road and Mystall Lane. Really nice to see that. And I've really enjoyed driving on the resurface since it was. Your car doesn't swerve around so much anymore. It's marvellous. Anyways, point of ignorance of mine, and you can enlighten me, is the work's been completed, but aftercare work still to complete. What are the aftercare works, and is that going to be held up because of shortage of dosh?
No, so the aftercare works will probably, I would have thought on that one, will be kind of ironwork replacements, just because obviously they put the surface layer over the top. They may have to go and raise some ironworks afterwards. Trying to get utility companies in to do it is almost impossible when you're trying to do the work, so that's why they'll go in afterwards and then they'll seal it up. But not all ironworks needs adjusting, so it's kind of working out the levels, but that's normally what the aftercare works are.
There's no question you can't answer, Kevin. This is impressive. Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was interested to notice the pothole blitz has started in the Burgate in Canterbury as I passed it today, which the officers confirmed. You mentioned a tranche 2. Can you let us know where that is, where that is targeted, and are there any rural areas that are within your various tranches between now and winter, or is it all the city again?
In tranche 1, we are doing some works in kind of the rural area. I'm trying to think off the top of my head of what ones they were tackling. I think they were doing some large scale works in Cochrane Road in Chartham. I think that's one of the kind of rural ones that's been undertaken. Sorry? Yeah, Chelmsford Street as well is on the list. Hackington Road, Tyler Hill. So there are some rural roads on there that are being done. As the phase 2, we have an endless list of roads for maintenance. So until we kind of get out there and have a look at them and kind of assess what are the worst ones, it's hard to put a list through. And it's also very difficult without knowing how much money is coming in phase 2.
So you knew for example, the ones in Herne Bay, but you're not sure other than that for the second wave.
Not for the second phase yet, no.
Okay.
But, we probably have a list of about 30 or 40 roads. So we need to go out and assess them. There's no point going out and assessing them if there's no money to do it.
Can I add then the road between the top end of Bridge and the city of Canterbury as something for you to consider at least?
That's already on our list, but not for pothole blitz. That we were planning to go there. I think it was actually just before my time, so it would have been in November before I started.
Some years ago, I think. Even.
And National Highways turned up on site. So because we need to close National Highways network, they basically trumped the call. So we weren't able to undertake the works.
So sorry, Chair, but so that, does that mean then that if there are any link roads between the villages where National Highways might have an interest, they're not going to
National
get done?
Highways declare emergency works on their network, we cannot stop them from doing so, as ours was planned works. So they had an emergency on the A2, which meant that we couldn't then go and work on the off-road.
Oh. So there's no hope for us then?
Councillor Thomas, is there hope?
Yes, please, Chair. A couple of paperwork things. On page 43, you've got Osborne Gardens, Terminus Drive in Herne. It's in Beltinge. I'm being pedantic here, but I have read the report, which is unusual. Hillborough Farm, Herne Bay, I think that's in Reculver. And that comes back to the big question. Do we have any updates? I'm not quite sure where we are and what action he's doing on the tunnels on the new Thanet Way at Chesfield. Thank you.
In regards to what for the tunnels on the
50 mile an hour speed limit at the moment.
Yeah. So a 50 mile an hour speed limit is a national guideline for any tunnel in the UK.
But that's not going to be removed.
It possibly, at the moment, that's kind of the guidance that's put in there. Some of the London ones are being removed due to the length of them, whether they're classified as a tunnel through the Department of Transport. But obviously, all of that information will probably go to the Secretary of State to make the decision.
If that's the case, it could be permanently done there. What you've got at one point, you've got a national speed limit sign, and then you've got 50 mile an hour sign. There's not enough time to brake and slow down. So if there is a 50 mile an hour going to be permanently on there, it needs the signage to come back. So you slow down before you approach rather than have to brake and cause an accident behind. Just a thought. Thank you, Chair.
That's noted, and we've got your amends noted. We'll make sure that they're noted in the minutes as well. Councillor Buckman.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a quick question on, we were talking about the joined up approach to things earlier. So with regards to sort of Openreach and other fibre companies coming in, because I'll take it back to Wincheap when York Road was finally all the flooding sort of stopped, and then I don't know, a few hours later the utility company turned up and dug it up, or whoever it was. But anyway, but just in general, how much information do you get from the utility? Because if you're going to repair the road and then 48 hours later it gets dug up by utilities for fibre, how does that sort of work? Thank you.
With utility companies, we have our streetworks team who kind of coordinate all the roadworks and streetworks within the district. We do work very closely with them. The problem comes when utility companies may put an emergency closure in. They can notify us after the event, so it doesn't give us any time to. I mean, you cannot coordinate emergency works. That's one thing that we really struggle with. We do try when we're out looking at the sites when we're doing them. We will try and look for identifying factors. If there's water on the ground or blue markings or utility markings on the road, that will help identify that someone may be working in there. And obviously we have access everyone to kind of one network. So you can kind of look into kind of 12 months in the future. You can kind of see what roadworks are coming up, which also help us to plan and coordinate our works. But it is the dreaded when an emergency gets in, we just physically can't. We do try and share road space as well with utility companies, but that also just come very, very difficult.
So I guess it wasn't. It was more like the fibre, like the broadband rollout and everything. Fibre optic rollout. How much of a contact do you get in with those?
So
obviously, because then it has a knock-on effect on parking and things like that as well.
So we do actually now per district we have a fibre coordinator a separate coordinator just look purely there to look at the fibre, because obviously it does, it comes into an area, it starts one end and it goes all the way through. So we do have that. So they have constant meetings and with them to try and mitigate any issues that kind of may arise.
Thank you. 30th of June, I'm getting my full fibre finally. Mr. Soul.
Thank you. Kevin, can I take you on to the casualty reduction measures, please, and the A260 Old Dover Road at Barham? That was initially put in, I would have thought, probably about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and obviously what was put in didn't work as well as expected, because it now looks as if it's being expanded. One of the consequences of when the work was first put in was that Church Lane, which comes off that road, when the 40-mile-an-hour limit was put in there, Church Lane, which is residential for the first sort of 100 metres with quite a few homes on it, is national speed limit. So we've actually ended up now with traffic speeding up as it comes out of the 40-mile-an-hour, seeing the national speed limit sign and then speeding up. So and we've actually got more housing there now than when the original scheme was put in. There's been some new builds there. So is there time, as part of the work that you're doing here, to look to expand the 40-mile-an-hour zone by about 100 metres as part of that? Or do I need to do that through the highway improvement plan? It just seems that if you're doing some work now, it makes sense to include it within the same scheme, because it is an accident prevention measure.
Thank you for that. I can ask, looking at the thing, the design is in progress at the moment, so whether they can incorporate it, I wouldn't want to say, but I can certainly mention it to them and see. And then if they can't, then obviously we can come back and kind of explain how you can go around having that included.
Anymore? Thank you, Kevin, for answering all those questions. Very impressive, and thank you for thank you for reading the papers, everyone, as well, which is wonderful. Which leads me neatly on to the final part on the agenda, which is monitoring of previous decisions. And as we've all demonstrated, we've read our papers. I won't go into that. Do we have any questions or issues with the previous decisions listed there? We'll take by exception. I don't think there's anything particularly groundbreaking in the progress updates there. Wonderful. That being the final listed item, do I have any further questions before we draw the meeting to a close? Of course, Mr. Brady.
Thanks, Chair. When we have active travel next on the agenda, Ruth and Jamie, are you able to do do an update on the KC whip? So that would be the Kent cycling and walking infrastructure plan. And then Ruth and Jamie, if you're able to do something on the LC whips, we've got a lot of new members here who won't know what they are. And I think more information on that will then help facilitate the next couple of years delivery and buy-in and debate and communication on the next active travel plans.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. The LC whip went out to consultation. We got a lot of comments back from spokes on where they felt that we could make improvements to routes that we were proposing. They're still being sort of incorporated into the plan to be finalised. And yeah, we'll make sure that that's ready for the next JTB September.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that can come back to September for sure. October. Yeah.
Councillor Heaver. No, Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, we're going back to monitoring. I'm just wondering whether monitoring has taken place on the new cycleway between Burgate and Littlebourne Road, and whether any cost benefit analysis has been done on that scheme in terms of the numbers of cyclists actually using it.
I think it says in the report that the stage 3 safety audit has not yet been done, or it's in the progress within the report. So there's probably more reporting on that still yet to come.
Will there be statistics of the actual number of
I think
cyclists
it's-
using that cycleway?
I think it's something that we can take back to the active travel team and ask what they've got. They've certainly done consultation on usage of it because I was consulted.
It's just
for
that,
example.
yeah, I mean, with the £4.5 million, you want to make sure that you're spending that because it's,
Sure. Yeah.
even though it
I think
sounds a
it's-
lot, it's not very much, and
No.
you want to be sure that you're spending money effectively. And I would, from observing it myself, I would question whether many people use it at all.
I've used it.
I used it once to try it out and decided not to use it again.
I too have used it, and I think what we can do is when we get the active travel update at the next meeting, we'll see if we can get some more information on that particular point and make a note of it. Thank you. Any more urgent business, bearing in mind it's nearly 8 o'clock? No, in that case, I shall close the meeting. The next meeting is, he says, having clicked onto the wrong page of his agenda, 10th of October. Thank you very much for your participation this evening.